Welcome to Ancient Spirituals Podcast, where we are going to speak about everything Ireland, everything ancient, and all the magic that comes with it.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Ancient Spiritual Podcast. Today, joining myself and Dee is the one and only Aldo Jordan. How are you doing, sir?
Great, Carl. Absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us and giving up your time for us to pick your brains, if we may.
You're very welcome.
Specifically, I'm curious to know more about the ancient sacred sites in and around the northwest of Ireland. We're currently in the process. We're off the back of our first ever tour and Beltane pilgrimage in, was it April 2025? So not even 3-4 months ago. And we're putting together one for 26 as well as a Samhain experience. And we're going to start in Clare and head up through sort of Connemara and head towards some ancient sacred sites in and around Mayo and Sligo before heading back down to Mead and what's the Loch Crew, is it, Dee?
Loch Crew, yeah.
And then across to Wicklow and then maybe back down to Tip and across to Clare. So we're going to put together an amazing 10, 11, maybe even 12-day experience. And long story short, is there anything that stands out that you'd recommend that we incorporate as part of our experience?
Yeah. That's a big question, isn't it?
Can I ask a bigger one first? Aldo, who are you?
I think the last time Carl asked me that, I said I didn't know, but
You figured it out now, have you?
No, I figured it out in the last 2 or 3 weeks, yeah. So I know who I am now. My name's Aldo Jordan. I'm the founder of the Irish School of Shamanic Studies. I'm a shamanic practitioner the past 18 years, and I'm based and from Castlebar in County Mayo. And that's kind of a short, edited down version of who I am.
Very good.
Yeah. That's my professional. I'm giving you my professional. I can tell you lots of other things. I got 5 children, and lots of other things. But that's who I am. And I'm based here in Castlebar in County Mayo. We have roughly about a 900-year history here. My family, and within a 10-mile radius of where I sit here.
Yeah.
And when I connected in with shamanism initially many years ago, one of the key areas that was exceptionally important to bring to people and teach when the Irish School of Shamanic Studies was set up was not alone the core areas of shamanism, but the core areas really of our ancient Irish spirituality, which incorporates the ancient sites of Ireland as the ancient temples and the places where, the places of ceremony and places of ritual. So, and a lot of the work that I do in my shamanic work would be the indigenous element of our ancient Irish spirituality, which is without question embedded in the stone circles and standing stones and the megalithic, structures in the country. And so when I teach that element of my spirituality, yes, we talk about many different elements of these ancient sites, and everything from archaeology to folklore to mythology to the spiritual significance and the energies associated with these places. So so that's kind of my area of shamanic work, core shamanism, but spearheaded by the indigenous spiritual practices of people that lived on these lands over many millennia. Yeah.
Yeah. You see why that was a big question.
yeah. It's a huge question. So when Carol asked me, I could mention a lot of places. When you talk about County Clare, I mean, you're certainly talking about the first place that the Neolithic people came into the country and came in to the western seaboard, really. Known or talked about that possibly, but there's never a definitive, and never can be, that that's where the Neolithic people arrived in from more mainland Europe and right in on the west coast of the country and began to build these megalithic these dolmens and these court tombs and passage tombs and all the different beautiful temples we have along on the western seaboard here, and equally in other parts of Ireland, of course. But I would mainly work in Mayo.
Yeah.
I don't need to go any further because it's replicated in the microcosm in Mayo as in the macrocosm of Ireland. That if somebody says, "Oh, have you passage tombs?" and we say, "Yes, we do." Do you have stone circles? Yes, we have 23 of them. In fact, are there court tombs? Yes, there's many court tombs. Are there wedge tombs? Yes, there are wedge tombs. Are there ceremony enclosures or initiation sites? Yes, there are many of them. So I don't really need to go outside of Mayo because everything that we have all around the country, we have the same thing in County Mayo. So I don't really go outside of it. But for example, next Monday, I will spend a full week down with the stone circles in County Kerry.
Very good.
So we do travel and we do we go to Kilmartin Glen in Scotland. In a couple of months' time, we will go to the usual Wiltshire, Avebury, Stonehenge, West Kennet, all of those areas in the Wiltshire region. But but when Carol asked that question, it's a big question to ask because there are so many places to visit. If I've got Carol's sheet off them,
let me qualify it. So let me make it easier for you, because in a real sense, what we're creating at Ancient Spiritual Tours is an attractive prospect for someone that wants to connect with the land, wants to connect with the energies. Maybe someone in the diaspora, so their ancestors left Ireland to go to America, to go to Canada, to go further afield, and they want to come back, but maybe they've already been to, no disrespect to Bunratty Castle, the Cliffs of Moher, the Rock of Cashel, and they've done the more established kind of tourist spots. Killarney National Park, beautiful, beautiful place, but how many times do you want to go there? So we're focusing more on the off the beaten track sites, the less well-known places, the places where there's just seemingly that little bit more magic that's not so spoilt by hordes of people going in and buying key rings of black sheep and leaving again,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I can't talk to you about Mayo without what comes to mind is Eagle Mountain straight away. And we had this conversation around with Brian Colopy at Loch Gur, how every field and every stone has a name. And there's something beautiful in the nature of the Irish language that captures that meaning that's something lost in the translation into English.
Yeah.
Now, I don't envisage we want to bring people up the top of Eagle Mountain, but we can certainly go and have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first 3 modules of my 12-month practitioner program in shamanism are always going to be 3 sites that surround that mountain. And that's for a reason. And a couple of those places you will know. So Moher Oakwood in Westport, where we have our fire ceremonies, that's one location we bring students on on the very early stages of the training program. We also bring them to the Boheh Stone, which you're familiar with, the Boheh Stone, which essentially is a sun worship site going back into the later part of the Neolithic period. So we're going back many thousands of years. It's in conjunction with the mountain.
We've got to give a shout out to Colin and Maria that brought us there. Was that earlier this year or was that last year? God knows when that was. It was early this year, sure.
I think it was earlier
Dee
this year,
O'Connor. When was it we went there? Beautiful site. Amazing that they just let someone build a house next to it.
Yeah, well, welcome to Ireland of the older era, when there was never a thought brought into play about giving planning permission for houses to be built literally 30 foot away from one of the most significant ancient sites in Europe, in fact.
Do you think so? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
The inscriptions, the volume of the inscriptions on the Boheh Stone is just simply incredible.
Yeah, well, there's 280 known as petroglyphs on the stone. Some of them are your kind of bog standard, if you like, cup and ring marks, and some of them are keyhole motifs and other kind of unusual motifs. When I go back there, and I go there with students all the time, but I will go back there myself when I'm drawn to go there, and I will bring my lamp, and I will take photographs through a technique called glancing or lamping, whichever word you want to use, but glancing, where you can get the most amazing photographs of ancient rock art through glancing light across the surface of the stone, and done in the pitch dark, of course, and you get the most amazing. You won't really appreciate the Boheh Stone until you actually do that, and not many people are familiar with that technique, other than archaeologists that would or enthusiasts that would spend a lot of time actually photographing these sites. But there's 280 petroglyphs on it, but it's all in conjunction with the mountain and the distance and the rolling sun phenomenon, which is due quite soon. The 24th of August is the next. It happens twice a year. It happens on the 18th of April, the 24th of August, the phenomenon of the rolling sun. But
so you and Carl know what that is.
Yeah,
People
hold on.
haven't got a clue.
What's the significance of those dates?
Yeah, what does that actually mean? What happens on those days?
So the rolling sun phenomenon is a phenomenon that takes place. Let's just talk about the 18th of April. As the sun begins to set across the sky, it comes. It eventually looks as if the sun sits on the very peak of the mountain, like a big orange on the top of the mountain. And then the sun then begins to roll down the northern slope of the mountain. It just looks like the sun is rolling down. It's like a ball being rolled down a hill, and down the northern slope it goes, and then it goes in behind this shoulder of the mountain. But it is a phenomenon. Yeah.
Forgive me, sorry. I'm just gonna do a little screen share so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And this phenomenon here on this picture,
yes,
where you see the rolling sun down Eagle Mountain from the Boheh Stone.
Yeah. And if you see that image there, so you can see the first capture of that photograph is the sun sits on the very top, the very peak of the mountain.
Yeah.
And then as you see it drop down, that's the northern slope. It slides or rolls down the northern slope, ends up going behind that little shoulder. You'll see it on the right-hand side. Yeah. It shoots out this amazing sunbeam actually when it goes behind the shoulder. And this is known as the rolling sun phenomenon. It's a very deep spiritual experience to experience that taking place. It's almost like everything just quietens down. Even the birds kind of like seemingly go into the trees. Everything goes very, very calm and very, very quiet. And it's something, without question, that was discovered initially by those early farmers that came into this country. They honored the place, and they decorated the stone with 280 of these cup and ring marks and keyhole motifs and so on. And it's a phenomenal experience. There's a bit of a caveat behind it, though, is that you need to see the sun. And we don't see the sun here much in the west of Ireland, maybe once or twice a year.
This
and
is
if
a
you're
good
really
point.
lucky, for the 18th of April and or the 24th of August, which I'm so grateful that a number of times over the last good number of years that I've been visiting there, I have witnessed that 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's quite a phenomenal experience, but there's more to it than that. It's about the worship of the sun. These local tribes, and just bear in mind, apart from the absolute rubbish that the OPW have put on a sign there, which is absolute rubbish. I mean, it really is. They're talking about its significance with the winter and summer solstice. That has no connection with the winter or summer solstice at all.
Well, they're even calling it St. Patrick's Chair, and it's nothing to do with Patrick, I'd say.
Yes, it sits on the Tócar Pádraig, which is the pilgrimage path. But remember, the pilgrim path that runs right down beside the Boheh Stone is an ancient pilgrim path that goes back thousands of years. That actually began at the hill of Tara and travelled right down through the country and ended up on Crewcon, or known in modern times, or in the Christian term, Crowpatrick, pre-Christianity, Crewcon. That's where the pilgrimage actually ended up, on the mountain and on the very top of the mountain. So it's said that the pilgrim path began on the hill of Tara and traveled down through the country. So whatever about it being the Tócar Pádraig in more modern times, a Christian pilgrimage, the passing of that stone through the pathway is something that people in this country have done literally for millennia. It became Christianized. St. Patrick's Chair, saying that this is the place that Patrick rested while he was traveling to the big mountain. And he sat down on the chair and rested there for a while, and off he went, which is quite phenomenal to think that because St. Patrick sat on the chair on a rock to rest for 10 minutes, it surpasses the fact that it's an ancient pre-Christian ceremonial site of, in my opinion, worldwide significance. And its association with the rolling sun phenomenon. And it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just a stone with markings on it. It's to do with connecting with the sun. It's to do with paying homage to the sun, giving thanks to the sun,
So
etc., etc.
this brings up a larger issue then, which we've obviously touched on before, which is if you're dealing with people that have the power and the awareness to create wedge tombs, passage tombs, stone circles that exist in harmony and in conjunction with the solstices and the equinoxes, where is this idea that we're more progressed as a society now? If they had the power and the capacity to do that back then, surely we've been dumbed down if we don't know how to do that anymore. I would
Yeah, but
suggest they were far more advanced than we might be.
of course they were. I mean, the modern human, or the ego of the modern human, will suggest that we are the most advanced, amazing species ever, and that today in the modern world we are as advanced as we ever have been as humans. Which, we could talk for hours here about that subject alone, to say how these individuals had this unique and phenomenal connection with the earth and energies and the cosmos and everything else. They were far more advanced than what we are today. Fine, we can build computers, we could do X, Y, and Z. But if we get into the real core areas and the energy around these sites and what they were connecting with, then we'll understand that this was the ancient and phenomenal science.
I think there's a lot of emphasis on the people of the past as well as sort of uncivilized or, warring chieftains. Obviously, there was some element of Connacht, Ulster, Leinster, Munster, and a a sort of competitive environment, Normans, Saxons, Picts,
Yeah.
Gaels, and so on and so on. But this idea that they were constantly at war, I would suggest, is not quite true, and that you were dealing with largely peaceful people. And I'm not sure at what time Brehon law emerged, but there was a social justice system that was connected with the land and people's relationship with the land.
Yeah.
And if you've any sort of graph or learning about the Brehon Law, you see how social harmony and social justice in the land was the focal point of people's integrity
Yeah.
and where they fitted into the scheme of things for everybody else. So I would suggest they weren't constantly at war every 5 minutes like we've been led to believe as well. And that when you talk about Ireland as a land of saints and scholars, that's probably not too far a modern incarnation of an older truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think particularly going back, if we go even back beyond the Neolithic period, and we go into the Mesolithic period, which we have quite a lot of Mesolithic human activity in this region here, which was pretty much after the last ice age, where there was a lot of Well, not a lot. I can't say a lot. I mean, they can say, there's a possibility that the overall, Mesolithic population of Ireland may have been 20,000 people across the whole of the country. So, but these were hunter-gatherer people. These were people that didn't farm. They foraged, and that they were a very that they lived in these small bands and these small tribes, and they were, if there was battles going on, it might have been little battles between one another, but we have that ourselves anyway, and that's human behavior that can happen. But the grander scheme of things,
Usually caused by a woman, Aldo.
yeah,
Usually some fella falls in love with a
yeah,
pretty Irish girl. Yeah.
sure, or it could be pissing on the toilet seat as well, stuff like that. But they had no toilets back then. They just peed on the ground, so it wouldn't have been that anyway. You know. Um, it's an interesting conversation that came up with one of my groups over the last couple of weeks, and it was about, when did the patriarchal system begin to become prevalent in Ireland, And I think when the patriarchal system became prevalent and became the ruling people of the tribe or of the community, that's when the wars began to kick in. When
Right.
the men,
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
when the men, and we see this time and time again. So what we do know is that, let's say, in the Neolithic period, it wasn't a patriarchal system. So that was the people that built Newgrange, Loughcrew, and so on. And you move into the Bronze Age, and it was pretty much not a patriarchal system as well. Towards the end of the Bronze Age, there were elements of it creeping in. In the Iron Age with the Celts, there was elements of it creeping in, but more so the big patriarchal system came in with the likes of the Normans, for example, and Christianity essentially.
The
And
Normans
then
brought with them chivalry as well. This idea of the knights and coat of arms, and there's still a lot of the Norman, the French influence in the Irish place names, surnames, and a lot of in our language. There's a lot of French words in English and the way we speak today.
yeah,
So the Normans had a huge influence, but obviously going back before that. I think one of the older sites, I don't know, when you talk about Neolithic and Mesolithic and Bronze Age, I get a bit lost in the timeline of things,
yeah,
if I'm honest with you.
yeah,
But there is a site in Newmarket-on-Fergus in County Clare called Mahon, a beautiful forest there, and what was a hill fort. And when they did archaeological digs there, they found gold. And they were wondering, well, if these were poor hunter-gatherer farmer types, what were they doing with gold? Surely there was a little bit more than meets the eye here. And surely they were living in a time where there was peace and prosperity.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
The only thing with that, Carl, I'll say is that you see, you may have a hill fort, but that could have been used over multiple generations and multiple peoples adopted it. So, for example, if the hill fort was built by the Neolithic people, a distinct possibility that the next group of people that came in were the Bronze Age people, and the next group of people came in were the Celtic people, and probably they were appropriated to their use over centuries and millennia, probably. So when you find gold at a bronze
hmm.
at a site, it takes pretty deep archaeological investigation to discover, was that just maybe the Normans that came in and began to use that site as well. So there's multiple layers of stuff
Trade
there.
links as well.
It will trade
The
things,
Silk
the
Road.
gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see the Celtic, the Iron Age Celts, okay, and you see a lot of their the torques that they wore. Now, it wasn't the ordinary people that wore the torques or this gold jewelry. It was the hierarchical system. But gold was very important. Gold was it was a great trading tool or material to trade at the same time. But the value would be very different to what it is today. I mean, salt probably or possibly salt was as valuable a commodity as gold was at some point.
Yeah.
You know, salt was a very valuable commodity. So how we look at the gold today would be very different to how they looked at it back then. It was shiny, it was came from the earth, it was beautiful, but
Not going to keep you alive.
yes,
Salt,
yeah.
you can salt the meat so you don't starve.
Well, salt of the earth, that's where the saying comes from, that you're the salt of the earth, you're a good person, you're a great person. Salt is a commodity and a trading material or you know, food stuff or whatever you want to call it, was quite valuable. Let me just tell you this, Carl, I'm not going to bog you down in it. And the easiest way to figure out the different eras, and we're just looking at those eras down through the years. So we talk about Mesolithic. What Meso means, it means the Middle Stone Age.
Mhm.
In Meso, so Mesolithic means early Stone Age. And if you go beyond Mesolithic and way back pre-Ice Age in Ireland, it was Paleolithic. It's gone back into the early Stone Age. But Mesolithic, quite prominent around here. There's been a lot of stuff found down in County Limerick. Some great stuff found in Limerick on the banks of the River Shannon. Meso means Middle Stone Age. Neolithic, neo means new. So these are the New Stone Age people. And the New Stone Age people originated from what we know today as modern day Turkey, that region. That's where they traveled from across Europe and into UK
Anatolia.
and Ireland. Yeah. Anatolia, exactly. And then later on, about 4,500 years ago, then we came across this other band of people that traveled right across Europe, and they actually originated, known as the Bronze Age people, originated in what's known today as modern day Ukraine. So that's where they originated from. They crossed over. So let's say the wedge tombs of Ireland is a good example. All of the wedge tombs of Ireland were built by the Bronze Age people. It's not Neolithic, it's Bronze Age. And these are people that came from that, what's known today as the Steppes region, Ukraine, that kind of area that we know today in modern times, and traveled across Europe, and they were known as the Bronze Age people.
Interesting.
Mm. So if you visit some lovely wedge tombs on your tours, wedge tombs will always be the Bronze Age, and in fact, the wedge tombs of Ireland are the babies of the ancient tombs of Ireland. We'll say they were the babies. They're the newest ones, even though they can be anything up to 4,500 years old, but they're new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I featured a lovely place in Mayo here. I featured it on Facebook there earlier in the week, I think Monday or something, known as the Aylmore Quartz Tomb, which is in Louisburg down here on the western fringes of South Mayo. And we visited it last year, took a lot of photographs, connected with the energy, amazing place. But that Aylmore Court Tomb here in County Mayo was built about 500 years before Newgrange. That's half a century. If you say, 500 years,
Talk it down, O'Connor. That's definitely going down. We get the spelling and we'll check it out.
Yeah, the Aylmore Court Tomb, half a millennia older than Newgrange. So when you talk, we hear so much about, and the only reason I'm using Newgrange as a reference point is it's the one that people know. If I said, yeah, it's known. It's a known place. It's widely known. So if I bring people to the Ballymacgibbon Quartz Tomb in Mayo, or Dahi's Cairn in Mayo, or any of these passage tombs along on the Mayo here, I have to say to people, this is actually the very same structure as Newgrange, same thing.
Yeah.
Or Loughcrew in Meath, or Carrowkeel in Sligo. These cairns, they're the same structure as Newgrange, not as grandiose or as big, but nonetheless they're the same structure. But the Aylmore Court Tomb is can be anywhere up to 5,700, 5,800 years old, which predates Newgrange by half a millennia. And half a millennia is there's a few years and half a millennia, like,
few
500 years.
generations.
Well, I mean, 500 years. I mean,
yeah.
The Great Hunger in here in Ireland was 180, 190 years ago. It's almost like 3 times longer than from now to the Great Hunger. It's 3 times longer than that. So you say, sure, what's 500 years when we're talking about thousands of years? Well, it's quite a lot, And again, it's a really good example that the big megalithic builders arrived here on the western seaboard first and traveled that way. Now, possibly some came over from the UK, but the older structures like Carrowkeel and Sligo, great place to bring your people on the tour.
I'm coming to Sligo. I'm coming to Sligo. We've got the Boheh Stone then, and we've got Moor Oak Forest,
Carrowmore.
and we've got Lewisburg, shall we say, going up that way, and then in Sligo, I was looking at a place called Crevykeel.
Yeah, another core tomb.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, interesting. I was only there last month, and I was in the structure.
I'll do a screen share again for anyone that wants a visual sort of graphic on it. I haven't been here yet. I think it Carrowkeel was the one that we went to.
No, we're in Carrowmore.
Were we?
Carrowmore, yeah.
Carrowmore, yeah.
A good example is the one, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the left. The one, the fourth one. It's a really good aerial view of the Crevykeel core tomb. It's actually the same structure as what I talked about, the Aylmore core tomb.
Right. So what's going on there? Why is it built like that? Is it just to honor the dead, or is there some bigger picture story to this?
Yes, anytime I visit Crevykeel, I'm just amazed with the place. In fact, it was the first site archaeologically excavated in Ireland. That was the first site in all of the country that was excavated for the very first time. That it was the very first archaeological excavation in Ireland. So core tomb is, you can see on the top of that image, there's an open area, like a court area. You see it on the top. It's like an open area.
Looks
right
like
there.
a keyhole to me.
Yeah, it could do. If you just see above that, you see is a passageway in. You see a little line at the top.
This fella.
Passageway in. You walk into a court area, which is quite large. It's quite big. That the image doesn't do it a whole lot of justice, but it's quite large. And that would be in the place where ritual would have taken place over a dead body. And if you could just imagine that the remains in Crevykeel would have been cremated remains. So somewhere in the vicinity, there would have been a funeral pyre. The body would have been placed on the fire. The body would have been burned. Later, when the fire went out or cooled down, that the bone fragments were taken out of the fire and they were ritualistically brought into that location there. So you walk into the court area. When you come down further below that image is where all of the chambers for interring the dead are below that. But a lot of that mound from the court down the way, from the enclosure there, or the little court area down the way, would have been piled up with stones. It would have been a cairn.
Okay.
So the cairn isn't there anymore. Yeah.
So the passageway into the main court area, that was open to the air, and then the rest was covered. Okay.
Yeah, so, and down below that then, Dee, is where you can walk into these chambers. Yeah. They were the burial chambers, and that area would have been completely piled up with stone as a court cairn. Yeah. And some people would refer to it as a court cairn. And it's a really good example, a very well maintained example of one of the ancient court tombs of Ireland. Now, here's an interesting fact.
It looks incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's very well looked after. If somebody wants to get a really good example of a court tomb or a court cairn, that's a really good example. Here's an interesting fact for you. Nowhere from the south of Galway. So if you got a map of Ireland, you drew a line from the south of Galway across to Dublin. To the south of that line, you will not find court tombs. You will only find court tombs to the north of that line. So they're not in the south of that line.
The wedge tombs and the dolmens and that.
Yeah. And there's no definitive answer to that. The answer may be, well, it's to do with tribes back in the Neolithic period who this was their region, but interestingly, when you go to West Scotland, they're all over West Scotland as well. So right from that line from South Galway across to Dublin, we'll say, North of that and into the west of Scotland, these court tombs are very, very prominent. I don't know if you're familiar with the long barrows of England and the UK. There's a long barrow, which is an ancient Neolithic form, like a chamber. So they're similar to the long barrows of England or of the UK. They're quite similar, and not the same, but they're similar in structure and how they're built.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got another question for you. Different
Yeah.
type of question. You mentioned energy there. You felt the
Yeah.
energy there, and talk to me more about that. It's like if you were to pick any site in Mayo or even the whole of Ireland energetically,
Yeah.
why would you pick it and what are you picking up? And that's from the shamanic energetic side. Curiosity there.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's really difficult to pick out. I'll give you an example. We have 8,000 sites here in Mayo. So we have 8,000.
Wow.
And I've been to maybe 10 or 15% of those sites
Mhm.
for one reason or another. Some of them are not accessible. Some of them farmers will not let you on the land. Some of them can be just very minuscule. They can be very simple, basic places. But I would probably have to say that the Glebe Stone Circle in Cong here in County Mayo is one of the most powerful places energetically, but I have a very close relationship with it for, 14 or 15 years that I've been going to it.
Yeah.
The energy is very prominent. We do a lot of dowsing at the sites and connect with the energy through our dowsing. And it's just a very prominent, powerful location, very peaceful at the same time. And spirit is very prominent there.
Okay.
And spirit, that when you go to the Glebe Stone Circle, you know that you're not on your own. If you go there on your own, you know you're not there on your own. You know that there's more taking place.
Yeah.
And the
Do you know
spirits are
if
there.
the I don't know if the images there do it justice at all, Aldo, but I like that what you're saying, that when you go there you don't feel like you're alone.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it's an interesting. There's 4 stone circles within the stone's throw of each other.
Hmm.
So there's actually 4 stone circles in that region.
Yeah.
Only one is accessible. The other 3 are not accessible because they're on private land.
Yeah.
And not without prior permission. And I will always advise people to seek permission to enter the land, because then you can go there in peace rather than looking over your shoulder wondering if there's some angry farmer running up the field with a double-barreled shotgun, which is not very pleasant at all. We don't have the right to roam here in Ireland. That's a disadvantage here for people that are really interested in our ancient sites and our ancient archaeology. We don't have the right to roam. If you go to Scotland, you actually have the right to roam. So in other words, if there's a stone circle down in the field and you can see it, you do not have to seek prior permission to go into that field.
Right, I didn't know that. I thought that was just a modern thing because farmers started closing gates on pathways and walks.
Yeah, you see, well, under Constitution and that in Scotland, the right to roam is part of the right of the people of Scotland to roam.
Yeah.
And that means that if you want to go and climb a mountain and you have to cross through somebody's lands to get there, you have the right to do so. Now, through the National Trust in the UK, which is a really great organisation and light years ahead of what we have here in Ireland, and I have no problem saying that at all, is that there's a co-op system there. There's membership. You pay 10 or 12 pounds a year and to be a member, which is brilliant. But part of the laws of the land in Scotland is, and it's the laws of the land, and I mean that it's also within the Constitution that you have the right to roam.
Yeah.
Where in Ireland, you don't have the right to roam. So you can have some of the most powerful and significant sites in this country that you are not allowed to visit because a farmer says no.
Yeah.
And the farmer has a right to say no. And that's not me going against farmers, because there were idiots out there that brought dogs into a man's land without the dog being on a leash. There was sheep in the field. They were eating a Mars bar and they threw the paper on the ground.
Leaving
And the
This
gates.
is the thing, yeah.
the location.
Unfortunately, if a minority of people that don't have respect for the land then contribute to the creation of a law that deprives others of being able to visit, there's just
Yep.
a lack of common sense there, isn't there?
Well, look at absolutely, Carol. Like here's a really good example. Some header is the only word I can use. Went up to Carrowkeel a year and a half or 2 years ago an aerosol spray paint can, and they decided to spray graffiti all over the ancient passage tombs of Carrowkeel. As a result, the OPW shut the site down. In fact, they put a big fence around the one of the passage tombs, and that meant I couldn't visit it, or you couldn't visit it. So it's the recklessness of one or two or three or a handful of people that can really determine, are we welcome, even asking for permission, because you could go as a very nice person and say to a farmer, do you mind if I go up and see the standing stone? And he'll say, sorry, no, you can't, because of other people's.
There's two larger issues here. One is, I suppose, I've always had this belief that it's quite foolish for a man to think he owns the land. If the land is there before we're born and the land is there after we die, surely the land owns us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't make sense to me that you can carve up the land and a man thinks he owns it.
Yeah.
But that viewpoint predominates, and especially in Ireland where people have died to fight for the land that they then own. I understand that there's a real passion and a connectedness to the land here that you might not have elsewhere. But this idea of the right to roam, it sounds like something where it goes back to an older time where we lived in harmony with the land and in connection with the land. And there was this kind of knowledge and reverence that we're here for a short time and the land is here for a long time,
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's the way it's gone. That's the way it is, and it has been for many, many years, that people have ownership over land, and particularly here in Ireland, without that right to roam, we went down to, myself and my partner Linda went down to Kilkenny a couple of years back. One of the reasons we went down is she's from Kilkenny, but one of the reasons we went down, we were looking at the high crosses, the big high Celtic crosses, which are a phenomenal kind of structure and the craftsmanship behind the carving of these crosses. But some of them are on private land, and you were unable or not allowed to go and have a look at something that our ancestors have created and left behind for us to enjoy, but we can't enjoy it because we can't enter the land. Here's the issue, Carol. Here's one, for example.
Yeah.
Carrowkeel and Sligo. The ancient passage tombs on the Breathtaking Mountains. Okay? Breathtaking means the speckled mountains. That's what Breathtaking means. Brack is speckled. And it's speckled with all these ancient passage tombs, older than Newgrange again, going back into 5,600 years old, 5,700 years old, something in that region. The land in which these passage tombs are sitting on is owned by a farmer. The passage tomb is owned by the state. Okay. So this is the piece of land.
What could go wrong there? Yeah.
Yeah. So the land is owned by a private person, a farmer, and the passage tomb that sits on top of it is owned by the state, which doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. For accessibility, it doesn't make sense anyway.
Yeah. I mean, as we travel around the country, myself and Carl, when we were looking for different sites and going to different sites, we'd come across places with "do not trespass," "don't go in." You'd meet a farmer and he'd say, "Go on in. I've only got it there because of insurance, because of the OPW A, B, C, and D." And it's so interesting where they take sites away. They're not helping the local farmer support. He wants you to be able to go in there, He wants a good path in. He wants it not to be a mudslide. It's just so interesting, the challenges. There was another place I heard, I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was the one you were on about that was totally destroyed with spray paint and vandalism. And even the roof is coming down on some of these places. Maybe it's something to do with Lough Crew or something there a couple of years ago. But again, the OPW is not actually assisting anyone to support these areas, landowners, just leave them fall down. It's quite shocking, really.
Well, here's the absolute fundamental problem here, Dee. We have the Heritage Council, we have the National Monument Service, and we have the OPW, three government bodies that don't actually interact with each other. They don't communicate with each other, but they all have some kind of hand involved in these ancient sites. The OPW really was set up to drain land, really. That's what the OPW was for. Or build buildings, but the OPW really should never be tasked with taking care of these very fragile ancient temples like Lough Crew, for example. And there's a cracked lentil in Cairn in Lough Crew. An amazing temple. And they locked the gate and they put a big padlock on the gate so you can't enter that passage tomb anymore. The cracked lentil is there because the OPW poured a load of concrete in on top of the passage tomb and put too much weight on it, and one of the lentils then cracked. So they won't admit that it's their lack of competence in trying to deal with these exceptionally fragile sites. These fragile sites are the equivalent to, a brain surgeon performing brain surgery on an individual. That's how delicate they are and how vitally important they are. It's not building a wall or draining somebody's land like what the OPW actually do. They don't have the capability, the understanding, the insight into taking care of these places. What there should be is a organization in Ireland that is set up solely to take care of these places and to look after them. So we have huge problems. As I mentioned, the the National Trust in the UK. I mean, in Ireland, we could really do something that's specific to the ancient sites, the preservation of them. And how, on your land, Dee, you might have a stone circle and some person that went there one day, their dog chased down lambs and killed them. And then the farmer says, nobody's entered this field ever again. I don't know if you ever visited the Browns Hill Dolmen in County Carlow. It's an amazing site down in County Carlow. So the Browns Hill Dolmen has a lovely car park. You walk down this pathway. It's all fenced along on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side. And down you go, and then it opens out really wide and goes into this big fencing off space like that. And in the middle of it, it's the Browns Hill Dolmen, which incidentally has the heaviest capstone of a dolmen. It's 120-ton capstone on it. One of the heaviest capstones in Ireland and the UK. Phenomenal. But what I'm getting at is, once you get out of your car in the car park and you walk along this pathway, you do not enter the man's field. They have fenced off his field like a pathway into this lovely circular area, and in that circular area is the Browns Hill Dolmen.
It's an example where it's been done well.
It's done very, very, very well, and the farmer will get paid X amount of money per year.
Everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, everyone's happy. You and I can access it. We have no worries. It's public access. The farmer has a little bit of his land cordoned off, but the farmer gets paid for it. And rightfully so. And rightfully so.
So it is possible with a bit of goodwill then and some practical management and competent management that we can bring that to other sites. And it may be down to the people themselves to organize this. Why do we need politicians or state bodies to be involved if it's private land?
Because the state owns the monument. That's why.
The
state owns that monument. The state owns every monument in Ireland, in fact. It's state-owned. These are state-owned monuments, regardless of whose land they're on. They're owned and controlled by the state. So therefore, I feel, yes, community bodies could lobby a local politician to say, look, we have this amazing place here. It's been grown over with brambles. Would it be great for people to come and visit this location? It would be good for the local economy and tourism, that people can visit that location. We can clear it away and we can fence it off, and we can pay that farmer a few €100 every few months to allow us to have done that. And we're not interfering with his land or with his animals, but we have clear public access into it. So community to lobby that is good. Local politicians, for that local politician to bring this to government, and that there would be money allocated to do so. And that's us protecting our heritage. And it's great for education. Imagine bringing the local national school for a little tour and talk about our ancestors that built these sites. But unfortunately, when it comes to government, they don't seem to have the foresight.
They're too busy.
Or actually the interest, in fact.
I was going to say they're too busy trying to get our children to question what gender they are and to choose. But I won't go down that path. Hey.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. I mean, yeah.
So we've mentioned Carrowkeel in and out of the conversation. I just want to bring up an image I've got here, as well as the Boheh Stone and Eagle Mountain and Crevykeel Court Tomb. We would like to include as part of our Samhain Experience Tour for 2026, Carrowkeel. Is Queen Maeve's Cairn the same place or a part of Carrowkeel?
No, different place completely. Yeah, different place. It's in the same region, but it's on a different hill.
Queen Maeve's Cairn is Knocknarea.
Knocknarea, yeah.
Knocknarea. Tell us a little bit about that. Isn't it magnificent?
Yeah, well, it's one of the biggest passage tombs. Well, look at. So here's the deal. So a passage tomb. So when you have this big mound of stones, so that is a cairn. So a cairn is a mound of stone.
Yeah.
But it's never been excavated. So in archaeology, they're very hesitant to call it a passage tomb, even though it's known as the burial place of Queen Maeve. But they can be hesitant to say it's a passage tomb because it has not been excavated. In other words, they have not tried to find out what's inside that hill, in that hill of stones, that cairn of stones. But look, at all be all, it's a passage tomb, and it's one of the biggest passage tombs in the country. In fact, size-wise, it rivals any of the ones in the Boyne Valley. There's a couple of really big ones up there in Sligo. There's Queen Maeve's burial at Knocknarea. You have Heapstown Cairn, which is in Sligo as well. These are monumental size passage tombs. But apart from that, and it's a bit of a climb up the hill to it, not too taxing on the energy, but it's a climb up the hill. So it's a very significant site, but it has not been excavated, and you can't walk into it.
Yeah. So what you see there is what you see, basically.
That's it. It's we have 3 of them here in South Mayo, similar to the Queen Maeve's one. Monstrosities. The size of them are phenomenal, but they have not been excavated either. Yeah. So in archaeology, they fall short to call it a passage tomb, but it's 99.9% sure it's a structure of a passage tomb. In other words, the tomb is within the center. It's within somewhere in that pile. All along the Mayo coastline here, right the way along the north to kind of South Mayo coastline. There's all these little nibs on top of the mountains. They're all passage tombs. Yeah. Unexcavated, but they're passage tombs.
Yeah, they have them down in Kerry as well, like the Paps of Anu. So they're there as well.
That's right.
I'm going to change the energy right now.
Yeah.
We ask permission of the farmers to go into these properties, right? What about asking the permission of the fae, the fairies, the little people, whatever you want to call them? The Dinima. I have learned the hard way. I'd
Yeah,
like to know
yeah,
what your thoughts are on that, especially bringing people to these sites and working from a shamanic
yeah.
point of view.
Yeah, well, I will ensure every time that I go and bring anybody, and I've done private tours for Americans and other people as well to places, and I'll ensure I will walk into that area first. And the
Hmm.
reason I walk in first is that I am asking permission
Yeah,
to allow us to enter their space, um, to you know to be respectful, inquisitive, and humbling in that space. So I'll always find myself, always, I will lead. And if I see people going ahead, I'll ask them to come back and
yeah,
let me enter the space first. Reason being, because the sites that I visit with people, I visited for years and years and years. I have a very good relationship with the energies and the spirits of that place. And if I enter that threshold first, asking for permission, I have some people with me, some friends with me, and there's always a welcome.
mm,
But they know that we're not there to harm or to disrespect. And equally, and a very deep tradition in Ireland, Dee, is that we'll always leave offerings in that space when we leave, and we'll give thanks and leave offerings
yeah,
to um, to communicate and their good nature for allowing us to be in that space, but always leaving gifts and offerings afterwards. Something as simple as oranges or apples. It can be as simple as that. And that's the even exchange of energy, rather than us going in to pillage, tire kick, and full of things. It's not that at all. So, and my advice to people there is, yes, ask permission, but you lead the way, or Carl leads the way to go in there first, and pause for a moment and just put the message out there,
mm,
and you will be welcomed in the sense
yeah.
that you're there for, um, you're there in a respectful way.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's what I loved about your fire ceremony. We were asked to bring the gifts, you know what I mean? Oranges, apples, fruits as an exchange. That was
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's the most. In Ireland, and I think I mentioned at the fire ceremony, there was these words they used, offering food to the hedgerows is what
Mm,
they used to say. Now, I think that's because it was a secret word or a code word for offering to the fairies at Samhain and summer solstice, for example. But in Christian Ireland, they weren't going to say, "Oh, let's offer food to the fairies." So they say, "We'll offer some food to the hedgerows."
yeah.
It's a roundabout way of saying we're offering food to the fairies, which is really, really important. And that was a tradition in Ireland about the even exchange and to give something back in a way of as a way of thank you, rather than more in the modern society we live in. It's more like, what can I get and how quick can I get it? You know, in our shamanic work, it would completely change the mindset of, if we will always give something in return for what we've received, and
Mm,
that's the equilibrium.
yeah.
And is it important just even to recognize or to acknowledge those energies, as in the water spirits, the fire spirits,
Yeah.
the earth and the air spirits, and going back to a time where those things had more prominence in our lives?
Yeah, I think so. I think the significance of the elements, yeah, the elementals is very important, absolutely. And spirits of place, we would call them spirits or power of place, powers of place, which would mean that every ancient site that you ever visited, Carl or Dee, that there were very specific spirits of place associated with that location.
Yeah,
Are you
That you will
saying
not find.
place?
Sorry?
Are you saying the word place? Spirits of
Yeah,
place?
powers or spirits of place,
Yeah.
where um, there are specific spirits connected to the Glebe Stone Circle in Cong here in Mayo. They're very specific. You won't find those spirits anywhere else. They're specific to there. And
Mhm.
the grander or larger scheme of things, the She are associated with it. Of course they are. The elementals are associated, but there are also spirits of place that are specifically associated with that
that's
place.
interesting.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
It's an
And
education. It's an education having a podcast with you, Aldo. Huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, um, the spirits of place can be associated with a tribe. that were associated with that ancient site.
So would they be previously living on that land?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. A really good example is the Boheh Stone in Westport, and through a lot of my shamanic work over there and journeying and connecting with the spirits of the place, there are very specific spirits connected to the Boheh Stone that you will find nowhere else on the planet, in fact.
Yeah.
And they're associated with that place. And they can be the elementals and they can be the she, etc., etc. But it's also the spirits of the actual tribe of people that lived in that location. Remember, the Boheh Stone ceremony is a local celebration. It's not celebrated 10 miles that way or 10 miles that way.
Right. It's very
That
specific,
very
nuanced.
specific to that location and to that group of people. Initially, the group of people, and then other groups of people as the generations moved on. But it was very specific to a group of people that seen that there was this phenomenon taking place in front of their eyes, and this was a message from the sun god. This was a message from the sun god. And they decorated the stone as a place of worship, directly associated with the rolling sun in the distance. But there are spirits of place. They're very specific to locations. They can also be animal spirits as well. And they're to be recognized and to be respected and as well. Yeah.
You separated the word elementals from the spirits of place and from the fae.
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, like the fae would be a specific energy, we'll say, for example. The elementals are another specific energy.
Okay.
The spirits of place can be the ancestors connected to that particular site.
Okay.
You can also have animal spirits connected to that particular site. They're all part of the grander, bigger, universal energies associated with places, but they are of their own entity, as well at the same time.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So I could get into a lot of detail about that, but
that's another podcast.
That's for another time. Yeah,
we've used up, we've used up nearly the bones of an hour and hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. I just want to pull up the correct location for Carrowkeel. I think I got it wrong there earlier with Queen Maeve's Cairn, which is a different site, right? And so tell me a little bit more about the name or the word Carrow. We've touched on this before, but there seems to be quite a few Carrowmores, and there seems to be quite a few place names. Is it unique to the Northwest that the Carrow prefix comes in? And
no, go ahead, Karen. Yeah.
No, you're grand. I saw Carrowmore, Carrowkeel, Carrow Ward, and I'm looking at the word Carrow and inquiring as to its significance. We spoke earlier about the Irish meaning carrying more sort of weight in terms of its mystical insight than the English translation.
Yeah.
Where does Carrow come in and what does it mean? How would you interpret that for us?
So Carrow moved into the Irish language. It means Carrow, and Carrow means quarter. And so there are Carrowkeels all over the country. In fact, they're very condensed up here in Mayo, it seems, and particularly the more I can't really say because they're all over the place. So Carrowkeel would be quail, which would be forest, like Quailche forest. So Carrowkeel would be quarter of the forest. What are they referring to there? I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Right. That was my next question. What's the significance of a quarter? I'm not buying that alone is significant enough unless it was a denomination or had some spiritual context.
Yeah. But it would have, and the spiritual context is that they're referring to nature, which is the spiritual context behind it. So forest,
the elements, maybe.
Exactly, yeah. So they're referring to nature, they're referring to whatever. So there's two ways of looking at it. One is Carrow can mean quarter, but if you have Carrowkeel, they may be referring to 4 forests in that region.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 to make up the full, so a quarter. So they may be referring to quarter of the forest or 4 quarters of forest. So Carrowmore, so I know Carrowmore very well. It's just maybe 10, 12 miles off the road here. I own a house in Carrowmore. Carrowmore means Carrow Ard, which means the high quarter, or one of the 4 high quarters.
Mm.
Means
Now,
it's so much more beautiful to hear what it means in
yeah.
the original language. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there is no specific answer or absolute answer to that question, but it's either quarter of the, so Carrow Ard, Carrow Ward means Carrow Ard, which means the high quarter. It's either the high quarter or one of the 4 high places.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do know about Carrow Ward is that there are hill forts in that area. So they were probably referring to the hill forts, either the hill fort on quarter of the land, or there are 4 hill forts in that region. You see, a lot of the context of that can be destroyed. Some of the hill forts may not be there. So let's say I search and I find 2 hill forts and say, oh, that answer is wrong. There may have been 2 others, but they were destroyed 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's your key, that's the really important jigsaw piece that has been destroyed. Like, for example, Carrowkeel, quarter of the forest, or maybe they're referring to 4 forests, that there are 4 there, a quarter, that there are 4 quarters. We don't know.
We know there's been a lot of deforestation, right?
Well, yes, absolutely. It's so Carrowmore. There's Carrowmores everywhere. Carrowmore is where we have the fire ceremony. That area is called Carrowmore. Go to Sligo, you have Carrowmore megalithic cemetery or centre there. Carrow quarter, more is big. Quarter of the big place, or 4 quarters of the big place.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way really to decipher that as an exact answer. And I guess that's the magic.
Not knowing
some of the language associated with the land, that there's something missing. Maybe we'll find it. Maybe we'll find it. We should find it. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But that's the mysticism, the mystical part of it, the magic behind it. But these are key words. They're very important. If you see a place name with Carrow, I would be very certain that there is an ancient site in the area.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the hill forts I talked about. Carrowmore. So Carrowmore in Westport, we have the fire ceremony, alive with ancient sites there. Carrowmore in Sligo, alive with ancient sites. So what about places with the name Liss, L-I-S?
Yeah.
So Liss, you have Lisses all across Ireland as Liss Carney or Liss Mullen or all of these different names. So a Liss is also referring to a fort.
Yeah. Rat being another one.
Rat being another one.
Yeah.
Kill, K-I-L. So
Temple.
Kill can also be fort. So like, for example, over in Westport near the mountain, we have Killadangan, which is an ancient ceremonial winter solstice site that has 4 stones that are all in alignment that will align with the setting sun of winter solstice. Killadangan. Kill meaning, Dangan meaning fort, Kill meaning forest. Killadangan means the fort of the forest. So Dangan is also fort, and so is Rath, and so is Liss. So there's all these different names, and you see them right across our land, and they're referring to something. There's
what
something.
about Bally?
Sorry?
Bally.
Well, Bally can be Ballia, which is town.
Yeah.
Ballia, which is town, or Wallia, which is town. So, or sometimes it can refer to mouth. So at the road here, we have Ballyvarry, which is Bailachawari, which is the mouth of the River Barry.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
So, you know,
It sounds so picturesque as well as, and I love this mystical interpretation because when we bring people to these sites,
mm,
we're almost posing the question. We're not saying we know what this is, who built it, and what it's for. We're saying we might have an idea what we think it is. What do you think?
yeah,
And somebody can come and they can almost channel. We're not using the logical or the rational brain through government approved study textbooks and
yeah,
no disrespect to archaeologists that are
yeah,
mainstream, but the knowledge can be channeled
yeah,
just through
yeah.
connecting. And there's a great wisdom in that.
Mm. Well, there's one thing that I'd say there, Carl, is, if we move away from Mesolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, move away from all that, put that over there. We move away from the categorization of portal tombs, core tombs, passage tombs, etc. Move that away, and then you find yourself at this structure. The first thing that we need to look at from a spiritual perspective is temple. This is a temple. This is a place of worship. And that's what it is. Whether it's a stone circle or a passage tomb, it's a place of worship. It's a place of ceremony. It's a place, yes, where the interment of the dead, yes, in some cases. But would you believe if I said to you that the passage tombs in Carrowkeel were also places that ladies would give birth to children, babies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also believe there was a connection with psilocybin and the local medicine and the mushrooms that grew in these places. I don't think what we're witnessing when we go to the passage tombs, the wedge tombs, the court tombs, the stone circles, I don't think any of that is disconnected from the ancient mystical knowledge that our ancestors had, and I think that that was connected to the medicine or the microdosing or the experience of the
Yeah.
psychedelics. In
Yeah.
fact, you could almost say it goes hand in hand with the art and the inscriptions that we've seen at the sites.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little to that, Aldo.
Well, I mean, Loch Rue is a really good example to bring into play. That Loch Rue has always been a place where mushrooms were very abundant. Now, somebody said to me recently that they have kind of dwindled down or diminished, not completely, but there's less mushrooms to find in that location. But one of the areas they're working quite a lot, and in fact, I'm going to do a lot of this connection next week when I go down to the south of Ireland, down to Kerry. County Kerry has most definitely, has the most Atlantic rock art, which is it's not megalithic rock art, it's Atlantic rock art, which means that a lot of it's found on the Atlantic seaboard, but not exclusively, but the majority is found on the Atlantic seaboard. And you can walk across a mountain range down in Killorglin in County Kerry, and you can trip over a stone. And if you have a good look at that stone, there's a possibility that there is some absolutely bizarre rock carving on that stone. Wow. By people going back thousands and thousands of years ago. And the most unusual rock art I've ever seen is the rock art in that region of Killorglin, across the valleys and the mountains of Killorglin, and down into Carrowdaniel, one of the Gaeltacht areas of Kerry. Mm-hmm. We visited the Carrowkeel stone down there a few months back with a friend of ours, a lady called Evie Lamb, who's an archaeologist from that area, living in that area, who has this obsession, is a good word, and she would have no problem with me saying obsession, with rock art. And she studied art in college, and then went on to study archaeology. And she's kind of marrying the two together, which is lovely. But the most bizarre, unbelievable. It's like I give my 2-year-old son, which I actually did yesterday, a piece of chalk, and say, "There is a wall. Just put stuff on the wall."
Yeah,
it's almost like that.
Yeah.
It's random. It's random. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So there's a theory that people with the spirit, in conjunction with the spirit of the mushroom,
Yeah.
that they channeled something from the gods, and now they communicate this channeling through rock art on boulders and rock panels. And it's a communication. Archaeologists, some archaeologists stupidly will say non-representational rock art. That in its own right is an idiotic statement, because of course it's representational. It represents something. They just didn't sit down. Remember, there's no metal back then. This rock art was done without the existence of metal. There were no cordless drills or chisels,
Yeah.
as we know it. This was done by rock on rock.
And it must have taken hours, like
Yeah.
days.
It's essentially, the first element of rock art is called plecking, where they use a piece of quartz, a pointy piece of quartz, and with a piece of wood, they pleck. So let's say if you're doing what's on the Boheh Stone, like a ring and a ring and a cup in the center, like a hole in the center.
Something like our logo.
Something like that.
Something like that, absolutely. Something like that. Something like that, yeah. Yeah, that it would be an abrasive stone. It may not be clear quartz, it may be more of a white quartz, if you know what I mean. Like, and they pleck around, they keep plecking around, round you go. And then you go into the inside circle, you pleck around. Then you go into the next circle, and then into the cup, and you pleck around. And then you will get a pebble, quartz pebble. And now you have put the little bits of guide around it with the plecking.
Yeah.
Keep going round and around and around and around.
Yeah.
And you can only imagine how long it took an individual or individuals to keep going around and around and around until eventually you have carved out this really deeply inset kind of carving. And so it's when I say to people, when I bring them to the Boheh Stone, or
I was just thinking of the Boheh Stone. Imagine if what that represented was a tribe of people who every single day got up in the morning and counted another day by inscribing their own. And what we witnessed there is over 200 different individuals doing that every single day of their life. Or is that a
280.
bit whack?
Yeah, it's a bit quack. I think you're on the still side,
Although I know we've totally taken you off your thoughts, but have you been to St. Gobonet's Temple and Well down there in Ballyvorney in Cork?
No.
Or the city near in Kerry, near I can't remember where it's basically the city of Two of the Danann.
Yeah.
In each of these places, there is quartz, and of course, because it's been taken over by the Catholics, there's crosses being put everywhere into the stone in the same way that you're speaking. It is it's the only region I know that do it.
Yeah.
So they're using that tradition still.
Yes.
But cross. It's absolutely amazing.
It's interesting you say that, because down in Lewisburg, I visited a well down in Lewisburg a few months back. And when you say we have a St. Gobonet's well in Achill Island here in Mayo.
There's a few.
There's Gobonet's Church and there's Gobonet's Well. But it's interesting you say that, because I visited the well in Lewisburg. I can't remember the name of it, but they were doing the same thing. They were doing the stations of the cross around the well, and they were also putting in the cross with the stone, and the stone was left there.
Wow, I've just got shivers. Same thing in Ballyvorney, Cork.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you walk through a modern graveyard today, and you will see this lovely white quartz on the graves. That's actually following a tradition going back to Neolithic times, where quartz was used relative to funerary rites.
Okay.
So when you go to the Punderbrone Dolmen down in the Burn in County Clare, and when the archaeologists excavated that portal tomb, they found large quantities of quartz within the cremated remains of the dead.
Okay.
There was a tradition in Ireland and in the UK and in other parts of Europe that you would leave quartz in among the dead, whether it's a cremated body or it's a whole body, the quartz was left in among. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. One thing is the high amplifying energy of quartz. It's an amplifier of energy. That's number one. Maybe that will help the soul to reach its destination. Number two, maybe it's cleansed the soul as it began to move the next world. Number three, maybe it was a gift to bring to your ancestors when you crossed over the veil and you brought this little piece of quartz with you as a gift.
I've got another one. I've got another one for you. What are the chips in the computers made of?
Quartz, and your watch and
Data,
many other things. Yeah,
data
absolutely.
processing, and you can imagine how much data you can get in a quartz crystal.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a transmission of information as well.
Absolutely, but I can tell you this, if you go to majority of the ancient sites in Ireland, you will find elements of quartz that are embedded in the standing stones or the stones that are within a stone circle. You will find them in many different structures. They certainly were an amplification of energy. Crevykeel quartz we talked about earlier on, there are elements of quartz there. And here's a really interesting one I was meant to mention about Crevykeel, that when you go into that court area, you will find that all of the known as orthostats, the standing stones that are within that court area, that they're all bellied inwards like that. They're bellied inwards. So when you're in that court area, you look at the stones, you'll see these bellies, these hollows that way, like that. And you go that, and you see it there, and you come over this side, and you see it the same way. And they say they were specifically laid that way to contain sound and to become an amplifier of sound. And specifically, going back 5,600 years ago, that when they dropped those stones there, they say that it was to hold sound, whether it was drumming or chanting or whatever they were doing within the ceremony of that court. The stones were specifically inset that way. There are elements of quartz there. Majority of ancient sites have elements of quartz. It's an amplifier of energy. If you have a stone circle with quartz, a lot of quartz embedded in the stones, specifically chosen by the people that put the stone circles there in the first place, that they know that they're energy containers, they're amplifiers of energy.
Not sure. You mean they weren't savages?
Sorry?
You mean they weren't just savages?
No, they weren't that. Well, the accessible stone circle in Cong, in the Glebe Stone Circle in Cong, the accessible one that is open to people to go into.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting, I've read a lot about it, and there's a lot of mythology, etc. To the Danann related, but they'll say that the Christians say that it was the petrified remains of the Druids.
Oh.
I believe
that the
that
Druids
too.
were petrified there, and they turned to stone because the new hip, cool god that now is in control to do Christianity petrified them. Or there's another version that it's the petrified bodies of those who dared to dance on a Sunday.
Ooh. Do
There
you
you go.
remember, was it the Greek mythology? Was it Medusa, that if you took one gaze from the eyes of Medusa, it would turn you to stone?
That's right.
And we teach this to our kids in the same breath as the dish ran away with the spoon, so that they almost think it's fairy tales. But I reckon there's a lot more truth to the petrification of both giants and modern day humans that we're not really told about, and that knowledge and that information is deliberately suppressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Ackle before. Would you believe that some of the natural amethyst that's found on Ackle is more valuable than the amethyst that we import from Brazil and Uruguay?
Of course.
Simply because it's rarer.
It's rarer, it's nicer, it's more powerful, its vibration is higher. It hasn't been pillaged. There's no child labor involved. And all of those elements that can bring down the vibration of stone amethyst brought in from abroad. So I have a good bit of amethyst and clear quartz from Ackle Island.
Beautiful.
Given to me by a really great man called Francis McNamara, an old man from down there, who played a trick on me one day. I have a shop down the street here, which is a crystal shop, like an angel shop. And he walked in the door one day, and I was working behind the counter. This was many years ago. This is 10, 12 years ago. And he was quizzing, what are these stones and what's this purple one? And I said, that's amethyst. He said, oh, what does it do? And I told him, and he started shaking his head. And next thing, he arrives in the door the next morning with a big bag, and he dumps it on the counter. He said, take a look in that bag. And it was full of quartz and clear quartz. And he said, what do you think of them? And I said, they're lovely. And I said, you fecker. He knew all about the stones, but he played dumb. He's a very smart man. And I said, what do you want me to do with these?
He was checking you out, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He said, I said, what do you want me to do with these? He said, buy them off me.
Yeah.
I said, how much do you want for them? He said, give me the price of a dinner.
Oh,
I said, how much is a dinner? He said, €10.
oh, what a
He said,
gentleman.
I'm going to go down the street there and I'm going to have dinner in the pub down the street.
Yeah.
I said, no. I said, how much do you want for them? He said, give me the price of a dinner.
Wow.
So I said to him, a tenner. And he said, €10, that's all I want. So I actually handed him €20. And I said, there you go. And he said, thanks a million. And he toddled off out the door. And I remember bringing them home that evening, and it was a sunny evening. And I put them all out on a table at the back of the house. And there was citrine, there was clear quartz, there was amethyst. And it's just the most powerful stone, crystals, because they're indigenous to here. And all he did was he took them out of the ground with a shovel and a pickaxe. And as I said, there's no child labor, there's no pillaging. This man was one of the very few men on Achill Island that didn't have to leave Achill Island to America or England for work, like all of his friends and his family had to leave.
Right.
He was smart. He started making earrings and necklaces from the amethyst and sold it to the tourists.
Yeah.
At summertime, made enough money in the summertime to keep him going for the rest of the year, and he didn't have to leave the island. He was very smart guy. But it's a high vibration, indigenous to this land, and it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. But
we could go on. We could
forever.
go on. I think we've come to a natural sort of break, and so I'm gonna always give the last word to Miss O'Connor herself, but I'd just like to thank you on behalf of both of us for your beautiful time and energy and thoughts and sharing with us. And we would absolutely love to have the privilege of having you involved in our Samhain experience for 2026, which we'll put together in due course.
Fantastic. And just a little plug, I'm doing a talk in Samhain 2025 down in Carrowkeel in County Kerry.
Oh, wow.
A part of the archaeological festival down in Kerry. So I'm doing a talk on the connection between the ancient sites and the rock art and its spirituality. So how do we bring the two together? How do we bring those beautiful structures and ancient sites and ancient rock art, and how do we look at it from a spiritual context? So doing a talk down at Carrowkeel in October, which would be really interesting. Yeah.
We can put some information about that in the notes when we put this out on the YouTube. If you've got some links or anything you want to share with us, we'll share that so people can get more information about that, and we might even pop down there memories of
very interesting.
The Michael Ley line and Skellig Michael. Yeah.
Well, the whole festival down there is visiting some of the ancient rock art down there, having access to places that are not normally accessible, but the leaders of the festival will have access to these places, not normally accessible, but agreement with the farmers that there's an archaeological festival going on for the weekend, and just really interesting stuff like just little talks and little gatherings, and just it's a lovely. We were there last year. It was amazing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, all I can say is thank you, Aldo. You're like, I could pick your brains for hours.
Yeah. I was only warming up there, by the way.
We believe it's.
I'm only warming up, yeah.
You're only warm. Yeah, no. We'll have
Yeah.
another one. I'm sure we'll have another one. And we look forward to seeing you in a month's time for the next fire ceremony as well. We'll pop that
Brilliant.
information in as well around the podcast. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We will
And
see
thank you.
Yeah, Gorv Magat.
Thank you very much.